Miracles often come disguised as ordinary moments. Don't overlook God's quiet work. When we think of miracles, we often imagine something dramatic: the sea parting, the sick instantly healed, or the impossible suddenly becoming visible. But what if the greatest miracles aren't always loud or obvious? What if they slip quietly into our lives unnoticed because we were too focused on waiting for something extraordinary? God rarely works the way we expect him to. He doesn't always send fire from heaven. Sometimes he sends a whisper that changes everything. Every single day, there are moments that carry the fingerprints of heaven, and yet we pass them by because they don't come wrapped in glory or thunder. The miracle might be the friend who called just when you needed encouragement, the delay that kept you from danger, or the closed door that saved you from heartbreak. These are not coincidences. They are divine movements hidden within the ordinary. God's hand often moves in silence, and only those who look with eyes of faith can see it. We live in a world that teaches us to chase what is visible, to measure success by what we can touch and prove. But God doesn't operate in the visible first. He begins in the unseen. The soil must break before a seed can rise. The process must stay hidden before the purpose can bloom. You may think nothing is happening, but heaven is always active, aligning the right people, the right moments, and the right circumstances to fulfill his plan for your life. Sometimes the miracle you're praying for isn't delayed, it's developing. Just because it hasn't appeared in your timeline doesn't mean it isn't unfolding in God's. The stillness of this season might be the space where your miracle is growing roots. God does not rush creation. He perfects it. When you can't see movement, that's when you must trust the Maker's method. The waiting room is not the absence of miracles, it's often the workshop of them. We often miss what God is doing because we look for him in noise and chaos, forgetting that his presence can be found in the simplest, smallest moments. When you woke up today, that was a miracle. When you made it through last year's pain, that was a miracle. When your heart began to heal from what tried to break you, that was a miracle too. Not every miracle will shout your name. Some will simply hold you steady when you feel like collapsing. Sometimes God hides miracles inside of problems so that you'll have to trust him to find them. The disappointment you're carrying may be the very ground where your breakthrough will grow. You think you lost something, but God may have been clearing space for something greater. You think you're standing still, but heaven might be rearranging your path so you arrive at the right destination, not just the one you wanted. The quiet work of God is often the foundation of loud victories. Look back on your life for a moment. How many times did you think it was over? How many times did you believe you had no way out, and somehow something shifted? That shift was not luck. That was divine timing. God stepped in when you didn't even realize it. You didn't see the battle he fought for you, the dangers he blocked, the tears he counted, or the strength he built inside you. The fact that you're still here, still standing, still believing, that's evidence enough that miracles never stopped. We often expect God to show his power through spectacle, but he often reveals his love through subtlety. The sunrise after a long night, the unexpected peace after crying yourself to sleep, the courage to try again after failure, these are sacred signs of his presence. Heaven doesn't need to shout to make an impact. Sometimes the softest touch brings the greatest transformation. If you train your heart to see God in the little things, you'll never doubt him in the big ones. Gratitude opens your eyes to the miracles already around you. Every breath, every step, every moment of grace that kept you from falling apart is proof that God is near. You may not have the miracle you're praying for yet, but that doesn't mean you're not living inside one already. When your heart is tuned to see God's quiet work, your faith grows deeper. You stop depending on signs and start trusting in presence. You stop chasing what looks miraculous and start cherishing what feels sacred. Life becomes more peaceful, not because everything is perfect, but because you finally realize that even in imperfection, God is performing miracles every single day. Faith means trusting God's timing even when nothing seems to be happening. It's easy to believe when doors swing open, when prayers are answered quickly. and when the path ahead is clear. But real faith begins in the waiting, when heaven seems silent, when everything stands still, and when your heart feels caught between hope and disappointment. In those moments, trust becomes more than a word. It becomes a test of your spirit. God's timing is never late, but it rarely aligns with our impatience. He sees the beginning, the middle, and the end all at once, while we can only see what's right in front of us. Sometimes we think delay means denial, but delay is often the language of divine preparation. God isn't withholding your blessing, He's shaping you to receive it. If He gave you everything you asked for when you wanted it, it might break you instead of build you. Timing isn't just about the event, it's about your readiness, your maturity, and your heart. You might be praying for something big, but God is still preparing the foundation beneath you. The process feels slow because He's making it last. Quick blessings fade fast. Divine timing builds what endures. When nothing seems to be happening, that's when faith must speak louder than your fear. It's easy to trust when everything makes sense, but the beauty of faith is that it doesn't need explanations. Faith is walking through the dark, believing the light will come. It's continuing to sow seeds even when the soil looks dry. It's thanking God not for what you see, but for what you believe is on the way. That's the kind of faith that moves mountains, not because of its size, but because of its persistence. God's silence doesn't mean His absence. Sometimes He's quiet because He's working in ways you can't comprehend yet. Just because you can't trace His hand doesn't mean you can't trust His heart. There are moments when you'll pray and feel nothing, when you'll cry and hear no answer, but deep beneath the surface, something is shifting. God often works underground, planting things before they sprout. The seed doesn't know when it will break the soil, but it keeps growing anyway. That's what faith looks like, growing without seeing. Many people give up in the waiting season because they think nothing is happening, but waiting is never wasted when God is involved. Every delay has a design, every pause has a purpose. While you're asking when, God is working on how. He's arranging people, opportunities, and moments in ways you couldn't plan even if you tried. The waiting isn't punishment, it's protection. You may think you're ready, but God knows what lies ahead. His timing guards you from stepping into blessings unprepared or into battles you're not meant to fight yet. When you look at the stories of faith throughout history, none of them were built in a moment. Abraham waited decades for a promise. Joseph sat in prison before ruling in power. Moses wandered the desert before leading his people. Even in silence, God's hand was at work, orchestrating every step. Their faith wasn't proven in comfort, but in patience. God could have fulfilled their promises instantly, but He chose to let time teach them trust. That same principle applies to your life today. Every waiting season has a purpose beyond what you can see. Faith doesn't ignore reality, it chooses to believe beyond it. It doesn't deny the pain of waiting, it just refuses to let that pain define the outcome. When you live by faith, you stop measuring God's love by your circumstances. You begin to understand that unanswered prayers can be blessings in disguise. Sometimes what you call a delay is actually divine alignment. The moment you stop trying to control the clock and start trusting the Creator, peace begins to flow where panic once lived. You might feel stuck right now, like your prayers are floating into the air unanswered. But remember, even when it seems like heaven is silent, God is not still. His timing moves at the speed of purpose, not pressure. You don't need to rush what's meant for you. What's yours will arrive when it's ready. When you trust God's timing, you release the anxiety of how long, and rest in the assurance of it will happen. Patience in faith doesn't mean passively waiting, it means actively believing. It's praying with expectation, working with hope, and standing firm even when you can't see progress. The most powerful people of faith aren't the ones who never doubted, but the ones who kept believing despite doubt. Their strength came not from control, but from surrender. Because real trust is not tested when everything goes right, it's proven when nothing seems to move, and yet your heart still whispers, God is working. Gratitude and awareness keep you aligned with the miracles God is already unfolding. Life moves fast, and it's easy to get caught in the rush of what's next, what's missing, what hasn't happened yet. But in that rush, we often overlook what's already here. Gratitude slows us down long enough to notice. Awareness opens our eyes to what our hearts have forgotten to see. When you learn to pause, breathe, and thank God for what already surrounds you, you begin to live in rhythm with His divine flow. You stop chasing miracles and start realizing you're living in the middle of them. Every moment you're alive is a thread in a tapestry of divine design. You're not just existing, you're being sustained. The fact that you woke up today, that your heart is beating, that you have people to love and reasons to keep going, that's proof that God's hand is still over your life. Gratitude transforms what you have into enough and what you see into wonder. It keeps your focus on presence, not pressure. It teaches your heart that even in the waiting, God is worthy of thanks. When you live without gratitude, your eyes grow blind to God's activity. You start to think He's distant or silent, when in reality, He's been showing up every single day in quiet ways. The miracle isn't always a dramatic healing or a sudden breakthrough. Sometimes it's the strength to try again, the comfort in your tears, or the peace that arrives in the middle of chaos. Gratitude makes you aware that God is near, working in the small details that hold your world together. The truth is, miracles are not always new events. They are often new perspectives. When your heart becomes grateful, the same ordinary life begins to look sacred. The sunrise is no longer just another morning. It's God painting hope across the sky. The food on your table becomes a reminder that provision has never stopped. The people around you become evidence of love that never left. Gratitude trains you to see divine fingerprints everywhere. You stop asking, "Where is God?" and start realizing He's been here all along. Awareness and gratitude work hand in hand. Awareness helps you notice. Gratitude helps you honor what you notice. They build a spiritual sensitivity that keeps your heart tuned to heaven's frequency. When everyone else complains about what's missing, you start seeing what's working. When others focus on delay, you see development. When others see an obstacle, you recognize opportunity. That shift in vision doesn't come from chance, it comes from choosing to stay aware of how deeply God is involved in your story. Gratitude isn't something you practice only when things are good. It's a discipline that keeps you strong when things aren't. In seasons of pain or uncertainty, thankfulness becomes an anchor. It reminds you that even if everything isn't perfect, God is still faithful. It lifts your eyes off what's broken and places them on what's being built. It reminds your heart that blessings are still being written into your story, even when you can't read the full chapter yet. Many people spend their lives chasing big moments, waiting for something huge to confirm that God is working. But those who walk with gratitude realize that God's work is everywhere, in laughter, in silence, in waiting, in healing. Awareness allows you to experience life not as a series of random events, but as a divine arrangement. You begin to sense that every step, every delay, every unexpected turn has a purpose. Gratitude doesn't change your circumstances. It changes your perception of them, and that shift often becomes the doorway to new miracles. When you start counting blessings instead of burdens, you make room for more blessings to flow. The more you thank God, the more aware you become of His movement. Gratitude multiplies what it focuses on. It shifts your heart from complaining to worshiping, from comparing to celebrating. It helps you live with open eyes and a peaceful spirit, no longer chasing proof of God's goodness but resting in it. You begin to notice how often He's rescued you quietly, guided you gently, and blessed you abundantly in ways you never asked for. Awareness isn't just about seeing what God has done, it's also about being sensitive to what He's doing right now. Every delay, every quiet moment, every shift in direction could be part of His unfolding miracle. Gratitude gives you the patience to trust His process and the clarity to see His purpose. When you choose to live aware and thankful, you stop missing divine moments disguised as ordinary days. You find beauty in what others ignore, peace in what others rush past, and hope in what others call hopeless. Because in the stillness of gratitude, you begin to realize that God has been performing miracles not just around you, but within you all along.